It's the Sumo Show, the podcast that discusses everything that's going on in Japanese Grand Sumo. Whether you've been steeped in sumo lore since the Heisei era, like me, Stan, or you're a dedicated fan who wants to get deeper into what's happening on and off the dohyo, like our friend Troy, or you just happen to be brand new to the world of sumo and want to learn what it's all about. No matter how much you know about the sport, the Sumo Show has something for you. So let's throw some purifying salt into the ring, do a few big Shiko foot stomps, and see what's new on this week's episode of the Sumo Show. So, konnichiwa, everyone, and Okaeri, welcome back to my co-host Troy.
Well, howdy do. Did
Hello.
I graduate?
You did, yeah. No, I did that. You didn't notice. I've done it the last few times.
Yeah, I like that. No, that's great.
You're now the middle. You're in the middle section.
I'm in the middle section now.
I did that. You know what? I did that after you won on the Fantasy Oyakata. You earned a bump up to the middle section by winning.
I like it. I like that a lot.
So you can't say you didn't win anything. You won status.
Yes, and I am unusually delighted by that. I mean, excessively. I think that's great. I noticed it just now, and I was like, oh, "What?"
Well, I've done it. I did it the last 4 or 5 episodes. So
yeah, I just don't.
That shows how much you listen to my intro.
Well, I'm busy clicking and doing stuff, but nice to have noticed it, and thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement.
But I just sent you the link so you can see I haven't updated my text yet, but I have been updating what I say. I got to update.
Yeah, that's right. Stan and I, we do put a little work into this program. One may not. Sometimes it's not all just raw talent. But yeah, no, and we were just talking about, we've got, various Google documents that help us, string the show together. And Stan's got an intro that he's been, using. And it was really nice to kind of hear me graduate to the middle rung, face the harder opponents. And
you are now definitely middle of the pack.
That's right. My motto in life: aim for the middle.
It's harder to define.
It is. It's harder to define, and I can feel successful just knowing I'm not on the bottom.
That's right.
So
I achieved something. I'm higher than some people.
Somebody, at least ask somebody. But hey, Stan.
Hi, Troy.
Now we haven't done a show. Since...
No, we've segued to mostly doing shows during tournaments. But this is our year end. It's Japanese tradition to have a Bonenkai, a year end party. Yeah. And we've done that the past few years as one of our scheduled shows when we had all of our Between the Basho stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we both agreed that it would be fun to keep the tradition up and just have a little year end show to wrap up the sumo year.
Reflect on the magic of the year before, the year that will soon be in the rear view.
And the one coming up. Yeah.
2025. And yeah, I dig it. And we do have a lot to talk about. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, no, I here's the other thing. Again, people don't know this. Often, at best, we have a very short bullet point list that we're going to talk about these things, or the list of these are the matches. This time, I put together a list of this is what we're going to talk about with notes and everything.
Yeah, it's not
a lot of much, but enough so I can remind myself, why do I want to talk about that?
That's right. Yeah, so I threatened that I was going to pick the Oyakata, not the Oyakata,
the thing in the place.
Gyoshi of the year.
The Gyoji of the year.
Gyoji, I said Gyoshi. The Gyoji of the year, and I can't do it. It's just too hard.
Wow. First of all, you only know one of their names.
I barely know that one.
And barely that.
You put me on blast like that. You're ruining the illusion of my middle status.
Well, I like the peppermint Gyoji.
That's right. I refer to them as flavors. Yeah.
And it would have been fun if time had allowed for you to go through all
the flavors.
Yeah, and just kind of take the pictures of them. I mean, you've talked
Yeah,
about doing this now that you're watching more of the episodes to
yeah,
start taking screenshots of the gyoji
yes,
in their
and then
finery.
let it. Yeah, absolutely, and trying to do something a little, more respectful than just the flavors. But they dress so flavorfully.
Yeah. Well, you got to describe it somehow, and
Yeah,
their colors often are delicious.
yeah, very much so. Sometimes you get a one that looks like it's not meant for eating, but
Quite a few of them actually,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that's probably been said. A lot of them do look very delicious.
absolutely. Yeah, I
There's
would. Yeah,
the toothbrush mint, toothpaste mint gyoji, and there's certainly a couple of peppermint gyojis. And,
definitely, definitely. There was a chocolate chip mint
yeah,
gyoji.
mm,
We've had cotton candy gyoji.
yeah.
We've had bubblegum gyoji. Trying to think of who else we've had. I'm looking at a lot of pictures now, and they are just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do, but I will say this one thing: if we were going to start off with regrets, not this, is not even on the
You
script.
want
But
to just start up? Go for you. Let's roll it on.
I really want to get more in-depth information about the Gyoji and their traditions and with the things that they do, you
Right.
know. And because I know there's a whole system of something, there's a bunch of, I don't know
Yeah.
if they're all getting into, slap fights or if they're, if there's some kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just,
Probably not. But
well, you don't know, Stan. You just don't know for sure. But, no, they're just fascinating to me, and I love what they do, and just the sort of almost preternatural sort of skill at being able to point at who lost or who
right.
won,
Well,
rather.
you know what? I tell you what I would be interesting that I don't
Yeah,
know is how they train. Right? They're
that's right.
really they're
Yeah,
really good at that. That they must do some kind of actual physical training. I mean, it's got to be part of being a Gyoji. But I
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
I know a lot about some of the things they do, and they have to study this, and they've got to support the heias in other ways, and but I don't know what the physical training for a Gyoji is, and how they're judged, and do they just send them out? The you're going to judge practice for a while, and then we're just going to send you out in front of the crowd, and you're going to get knocked over a few times, and you'll
right,
learn.
yeah, yeah. You're gonna get your slippers knocked off.
It, it could be. I mean, that it's not impossible. That's a big part of the training.
But they do have a hierarchy of
Oh yeah,
Gyoji,
no, there is.
and
There's absolutely a hierarchy, in
and
just the
yeah,
same way as there is for the wrestlers.
right, yeah, exactly. So I'm just imagining this whole sort of just a collection of rituals, another shadowy organization to unpack and expose for their
Well, I
new.
mean, the Gyoji also have a very um, a religious aspect to
Yes,
some of what
yes.
they do.
Well, and
So
you can kind of tell that with the kind of the reverence in which they do a
right,
thing
and
is all very ritualistic.
yes,
Yeah,
and their regalia a lot of the pieces of their regalia are the same or very reminiscent of what Shinto priests wear.
very interesting. Yeah, I mean, just a very striking hat and
Yeah, that's
just the whole thing.
definitely a priest head.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking back at some of the, maybe we'll do a little fun, a little like, I don't know, something. Because I really do. I've talked about it a lot. I just think that they're very fascinating and they're so well established as to what they are
Yeah,
that that they're just, yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
yeah, I agree.
Anyway, so that's my regret.
All right, well, my regret is that you didn't do that either.
Hey, wait a minute. No piggybacking on regrets. Yeah, so let's do it. Sumo news.
Sure. let's talk. Let's talk in the sumo news.
Dun, dun, dun,
Um,
dun.
there's been a little bit of sumo news since the end of the last tournament. No big promotions or retirements as opposed to the previous couple ones. Um, but the first bit of sumo news is it's been announced that the international jungyo is going to return again. It's actually a koen, not a jungyo. I had to look this up. A jungyo is a is what we call the exhibition tour that they go on between tournaments.
I have
And
never heard
Jungyo,
of this.
you have heard me say that word a lot.
Oh, I'm certain I have, but this an international event is not one that I'm.
But when I was looking up, I knew that they hadn't gone internationally in a while, and I saw that some of the visits were listed as Jungyo and some were listed as Koen. And I was like, what is the difference between those two? And it turns out that Jungyo is an exhibition tour which is sponsored by the locality that's bringing them out. So they are setting up
Yeah.
space and doing that. And a Koen is one which is set up by the Sumo Association to spread sumo culturally.
Got you.
And so when they came to Vancouver in 1998, 98 or 99, I saw them. I saw them when they came to Vancouver. That was a Koen. That was the Sumo Association had done that.
I wasn't even born yet.
Right. Well, that's why I'm telling you about it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And the last time they went out anywhere was Jakarta in 2013. That was the last time there was an international tour, and it was a Jungyo. It was the local sumo club in Jakarta paid and set up that tour.
I see.
So they've been to London twice that I know of previously, and possibly earlier. But in 1991 was a really big one, and that marked the kind of arrival of sumo on the international scene. That was right at the start of the Americans of the Akebono, or Konishiki was big then.
Yeah.
Akebono was on the rise, and he was about to become the first foreign wrestler, first foreign Yokozuna. And they went to London for a 5-day exhibition tournament, I believe. And it was really big. It was covered hugely. It was on television internationally, and there's still a lot of video from that tour.
Very interesting.
I believe they went back to London in like 2011 or 2012, but even I didn't hear about it. I was still struggling to reconnect with sumo at that point, and if that had made big news, I'd have heard about it because I was constantly looking for it. But I didn't. I mean, I don't live in England either. But
well, that's fascinating. Yeah. So when they do, so they've got the farther regions that folks who may not be able to get to sumo, but they're in Japan. Right, like that's the
Jungyo. It goes around Japan mostly, visiting the different prefectures and cities that don't host major tournaments, and they visit a region at a time. Like they'll pick the Southwest or the North. They'll go visit that area for a few weeks.
One of the regions looks like the Kinki region. Yeah.
I'll tell you, that sure is a kinky region.
Apropos of nothing, I just saw it and had to share it. But yeah,
I'm not surprised you couldn't resist.
We have been doing this for a while, haven't we?
So they will be going to London in October of 2025. So any fans of the Sumo Show who are listening to this and live in the UK or planning to be there in October, I believe that tickets are going to go on sale early in the new year.
Well, I know that they're going to demand that we come, and I don't know if we can do it, but we'll try to talk them out of it, or maybe, I don't know.
But we'll have to let them down slowly.
Yeah, I know they're going to be very disappointed, but whatever. I mean,
all of our fans in England are going to be very disappointed. The Sumo Show will not.
Well, and all the Rishi are just going to be devastated.
What? Stan and Troy are not here?
No, it'll rock the Hayas.
Rock the Haya. That was a Clash song, wasn't it?
One of my favorites, yes. Rishi don't like it. Yeah.
Gyoji don't like it.
That's it. There's a song in there somewhere. Future theme song. Cool. Well, that's
So
fun.
what else we got on the news? Terunofuji, our Yokozuna, who won 2 tournaments this year and was absent for most of the remaining 4. I not as in he appeared for some days in a few of them and missed some of them entirely.
Yeah.
He has not been back being active since he won the July tournament. Let's see. No, I think he fought a little bit in September and then pulled out like on day 4 or 5 and did not fight at all in November. Well, he's back, not just training. He's gone on tour on the Jungyo and
Oh.
did practice bouts on which he hadn't done in a year and a half. Like he even when he has been in the tournaments, he's not gone on tour, and he's or when he has, all he's done is like ring entering exhibitions. He hasn't done any sparring, but he did, and he was sparring with Onosato, which is
Interesting.
that's serious stuff. So it seems that he is serious about getting himself into shape to compete in the January tournament.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he sees that someone's getting promoted to Yokozuna soon, and he's his way to retirement is opening up.
So he's getting ready to.
That's what I think. That's my
Sure.
read on one of the reasons why he's stepping up and making more public appearances. And usually he wouldn't do it because he doesn't want to risk injuring himself.
Yeah.
Right. But if he knows that the end is nigh, leave it on the dojo. Support, do good fan service.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's I'm just hoping that he gets out without.
Yes. Well, I mean,
Further exacerbating his.
He's hurt himself plenty enough as it is.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Also, Onosho. If you remember who Onosho is,
I do.
Onosho has retired, which came as a huge shock to me. I think I posted about this yesterday or this morning. Chris Sumo did a video. He's been doing some other work that's kept him from updating as regularly as he sometimes does.
Yeah.
But he started to catch up, and one of the first ones is at Onosho. Just kind of announced, "Hey, I'm hanging it up."
Yeah.
And the list of injuries that he named were much bigger than I had him pegged for. Like, he's never been one that they've come out and said, well, he's hurt this and there's that. He just kind of fights around and has done mediocre sumo where clearly something was bothering him.
Yeah.
But just a huge list of injuries he's been fighting with. And
at 28?
At 28 years old.
That's
which is a little young for someone that's, he was still doing pretty well. But he was saying that he got to watch some of his matches I don't remember what the reason was. And he was just looking at the last couple of tournaments and how he did. And he said he looked at it and he said, it doesn't look like I'm not doing my sumo at all anymore. There's none of my sumo left in that. And you get the retirement statements of, wanting to give it all for the fans. And if I can't give it all, then I'm not going to go out there and give them bad sumo.
Right. Yeah. And that he's given all that he could give, all that he has.
His highest rank ever was Komusubi, and he's been. That's funny. I mean, it's funny to me in that I clearly remember the entire arc of his career. I remember in 2017 when he premiered in the top division and how well he had done, and kind of then he stormed up to Komusubi and was there for a couple of tournaments, and then kind of ran into that wall and has bounced around ever since. And for the whole time that we've been doing this show, I've been saying how much I keep hoping he'll put it together and get back there. I was so I really loved him at his best. He was really great. Um, but he just injury and sometimes mental focus. I think that just
Yeah,
he never really did it.
he's also leaving. Like he's not. There's no elder
Yeah,
stock, right? There's
no.
no. Yeah,
Although he could, right? That's one of the
yeah.
points that Chris was making. That he, having been a Komusubi and having been active and won as many matches as he has in the top division, he qualifies to be able to acquire elder stock if he can find it and stay in sumo as an oyakata as a coach.
And also,
Um,
I mean, you could also imagine him. He's got a background in doing, being a NHK, like like he could do stuff, and it's
there's all kinds of things,
yeah,
but
yeah, it's very
no,
interesting.
he's going out. I don't. He's working for some kind of uh, cosmetics company uh, in the publishing and PR in the public relations department. But it's unclear what that really means or what he's going to be doing.
Very interesting.
He's out.
Cosmetics marketing, yeah. Well,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got a real baby face. He's got.
yeah, he definitely does. He definitely does.
I'd love to see him be their new poser. Oh, are you a fat guy who needs some makeup? Well, look how good we make Kono Show look. He's so pretty. Ooh.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. And so June is when they'll do his ceremony.
Yes, they've already set up his top knot cutting for June.
Well,
But he's out.
and what a great way to. I mean, at least he's. It's unfortunate that at 28 he's got so much, injury and
Yeah,
all of that. But it feels like he's leaving on a good note, right? Like people were better to be shocked that you're leaving than
right,
like it's about
right.
time.
Yeah, it's like, well, we were afraid this was going to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but sumo, any kind of sports situation, you can say that, but there's no time when someone that you look at and go, no, he could do it. He could. Don't come back. Don't be a quitter. Oh yeah, says the guy who's never had to do this.
Right. Wait, are you talking about
Any
Shodai?
any.
With I mean, not to
Man,
belabor my other
man.
regret, but with there
Um,
seems like there would be a lot of lamenting.
yeah. Now,
Yeah.
apparently, Onosato's coach at the retirement announcement was saying, I thought about trying to talk him out of it because he does great things he's the highest ranked wrestler in his stable, or I'm not sure he still is, but he had been for a very long time. Um, and he trains with the everyone. He helps to train the younger guys, and apparently works really hard and is fun, good to be around. And so the coach basically said, "Well, I thought about trying to talk him out of it, but I looked at all the injuries and the likelihood that he could do anything, and just he's earned it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's ready to.
If he's done, we're done.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So yeah." And then the last bit of sumo news is this is a guy we do not talk or have not talked about a lot. He's a sumo commentator named Kitano Fuji, who was a yokozuna in his time in the 60s and early 70s, and then became a coach who coached up two great uh, um, yokozuna, including the guy who is currently the head of the Sumo Association.
Oh.
He coached up Chiyono Fuji, one of the all-time greats, and um, I can't remember the Sumo Association guy's name when he was wrestling, which is a bad mistake on my part. But yeah, so he was a great yokozuna. He was a great coach. And after leaving the Sumo Association, he's become one of the most popular and most sought after sumo commentators.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so he unfortunately passed away at the beginning of November. It happened during or just before the tournament in November.
At the ripe old age of 82.
82. Keith
Yeah.
Inafuji. So we tip our hat to him and the great career he has, and many lives. He's lived 3 great sumo lives, and should be remembered for any one of them, but all 3.
Yeah.
That's Keith Inafuji. So that's the sumo news.
All right.
Yeah. So we're here for our Bonenkai, our year-end show. So
shall we review?
Wrap up. So I made some notes about what happened this year in sumo. Just kind of looking back at the whole of the year.
Yeah.
Because this is we've now been doing the Sumo Show for over 2.5 years.
Wild.
Yeah. Next March will be our 3rd anniversary.
I love it.
So yeah, we covered the whole of this year, and we don't remember most of it.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, there are a few things I do remember reading this list that you've.
Look at this list. Do you remember these things?
There's some things that I really do remember. And I'm curious because it hasn't really been discussed. Because of course, why would they continue to discuss things? But there seems like there's a lingering issue around some of this stuff that hasn't quite been resolved in my mind, but maybe it has been.
Well, I mean, there's only so much we talk about it too, particularly given the shift in the show style.
That's true. That is true.
But yeah, some of these things have, in the sumo way, been
swept
taken
away,
out of public view.
Yeah.
And they are still discussed a little, but they're discussed in the very detached and controlled ways that they tend to.
That's right. Yeah.
They tend to do that,
like a breeze and like a stiff wind on a summer day, and whatever.
So the year kicked off in January with the January tournament, the Hatsubasho, where Terunofuji, who had not won a tournament in quite a long while, and we spent most of 2023 predicting that he was going to retire, and I certainly started 2024 predicting there's no way we're going to get to 2025 and he's still going to be fighting.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, all indicators were that he was, he was done.
And he hadn't fought in quite a while. He came back in January and won the tournament with a 13-12 record. And he won in a playoff against Kotonowaka when he was still called Kotonowaka, who our current Kotozakura. And they were both 13-2, and Terunofuji beat him in a playoff. In fact, I believe that Kotonowaka beat Terunofuji one of his 2 losses in that tournament, and so it was. There's a lot of excitement that maybe he was going to get his first. Kotonowaka had not won a tournament yet at that point.
Interesting.
But Terunofuji won it and looked strong the whole tournament, 13-12. I mean, we think about the tournaments we've seen in the last few years, and there haven't been a lot of 13-2 or 14-1.
No, yeah.
So he came back, beat everyone but 2 people, and took his 9th Yusho, which then immediately reopened the conversation. Right, the thought was going to be Terunofuji is going to retire. Like, look at him, but his goal was to get 10 Yusho. 10 tournament championships, because that's the mark that marks you as a Dai Yokozuna, as a great Yokozuna.
Right.
Not a lot of them have gotten 10 Yusho. Let me see if I can quickly pull up a list of so yeah, I mean, so the if you go and look at most career top division championships, the top 10 number 10 on that list is Akebono with 11. So 10 wins is an all-time great. Like, there are only 9 people above you who have gotten more than 11 ever. So
interesting.
Just to kind of add that why 10 makes you die Yokozuna, because it just doesn't happen all that often. And so when he was at 8, and he always said he wanted to do that. The longer he went without being able to fight, the more the thought was, look, there's just, if he'd been a little luckier, it would have happened. But at this point, it's not going to happen. But he starts the year off with his 9th win and decisively beating the field and beating one of the up-and-coming guys in the playoff. So suddenly it was back on. It's like, whoa, what's going to happen?
Exciting. Yeah, I'm just looking at this whole list, like the most career championships, most undefeated championships, and this is the top is
top. Hakuho 45, but then it very quickly drops down through the 30s and 20s into the teens.
Into the teens. Right? It's not.
The top
right about number 4.
The 4 best ever are in the teens.
Yeah, that is something else.
So yes, this kind of thing as sports fans, it's hard to put that in perspective, right? Unless you look at a list like this, because it seems like, I don't know, 10 wins doesn't seem like it should be so much for the greatest of the era, but it is. It's just
Hakuho with is it 10,093 wins? Or not 10,000? I'm sorry, 1,093.
Yes,
1,093 wins. That's a lot of wins.
That's wins in the top division. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thinking about imagine hanging out and for 1,093 times to get Tachiite.
And those are the wins. That's not
the wins. Yeah. I would just imagine at about number 6, I'd be like, okay, I'm done.
I'm out of here.
That's great. Fascinating.
Yeah. So that's and that was Onosato's first tournament in the top division, and only his 6th tournament overall, I believe, in professional sumo. So one of our current Ozeki had his top division debut in January. That's how the year started.
That's right. Big year.
Yeah. After that, Koto Noaka got promoted to Ozeki following the January tournament. And he announced that it had been known that he was going to change his name to Kotozakura. He'd been saying that. Kotozakura is the name of his grandfather, who was an Ozeki. I think, was Kotozakura a Yokozuna? I think he was an Ozeki. And so he'd promised his grandfather that when he made Ozeki, he would change his name to that. And we talked about this at the beginning of the year. But he announced that he was going to fight one fight with his name Koto Noaka because he got that from his father. That was his father's ring name.
I love that.
And his father didn't make it to Yokozuna. He'd been a Sekiwake who never managed to get the promotion. And so he promised to do one tournament using the Koto Noaka name, and then he would switch over to Kotozakura, which he did.
I like that.
Yeah, good. He's a good kid, that Kotozakura.
Yeah, good kid, and I just like that, the mindful sort of acknowledgement of the past. And
right. So that was the good thing that happened in the wake of the January tournament. The bad thing that happened in the wake of the January tournament was there was a scandal in Miyagi no Beya where Hook Seiho, the guy we used to call the Giant when he was around, got tagged for punishing and
endorsing or encouraging hazing or ignoring it.
And bullying the other people at the Heya. particularly when he was left in charge, which is another part of the problem. But that came out and was a pretty big scandal, and he wound up being allowed to retire um, rather than than making him go through the public
humiliation of
having an investigation and reporting publicly and having him get kicked out. He asked if he could retire, and they said yes, and because that let it all get finished without shining. And we talked a lot about that.
Yeah,
right. That what it failed to do was allow the light of public scrutiny to get in there. It avoided that, which
is a bummer because that nothing changes in that kind of an environment.
Less changes. I mean, he did. It was no public. It was a not public secret what was going on and why he got pulled out and why he retired.
What was the weird secret was why they came down so hard in this instance, and it kind of led to some other speculation, right?
Well, yes, yeah, and tied up in this is Miyagi Nobeya is the stable of former Hakuho, who does things his own way, which doesn't fly well with the Sumo Association, and was trying to make changes in the way things are done. And he left Hokuseiho in charge. And in fact, some of the things that Hakuho they brought up was he wasn't living at the stable. And there are a bunch of things. And but as you point out, one of the things that this is that there's a lot of talk about the fact that as bad or worse things happen at other stables without it being this publicly dragged out, or either the coach or the wrestler involved being made such an example of. And there's a lot of talk about it being because it's Hakuho and because they wanted to make an example of it.
Right, yeah, they're just getting too big for his britches.
Whether or not it's, I mean, that's part of the discussion. Was he getting too big for his britches, or there's a lot of talk of them just being jealous of his success.
That's what I mean. They felt like he was getting too free with his commentary, too well loved, too sought after, or whatever.
He does a lot of things that other people don't do. He set up the Hakuho Cup, which is the big national tournament for juniors, and it's the Hakuho Cup. And he shows up, and he's a big name that was getting a lot of attention on his own that the Sumo Association could not claim or control.
Right. Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who are like, well, why don't I have that? And part of the answer is, well, you didn't set it up, did you?
You didn't do the thing.
It's not like someone handed this to him. He did all these things. On the other hand, you didn't tell him not to, and now suddenly
you're doing retroactive punishment because he had the initiative to.
Right.
Yeah.
But as we were saying before, the problem is that the things that are accused of happening did happen, and something does need to be done about that.
Yeah, agreed.
The secondary problem is other people aren't getting called out on the carpet like he was and should be. And it's not so much that he was. It's why aren't the others? Even so, we're going to see that in March, they wound up closing Miyagi Nobeya because of this, and it's still closed. They folded it in with another Heya, and he now has to report to that coach. He is now secondary, with the talk of letting him return to having his own stable after he learns a little more. That they let him. The feeling is they let him go out and run a stable too soon. They didn't give him the proper coaching that a coach deserves and needs. And just because he was Yokozuna doesn't mean he's going to know how to run a stable.
Right.
And so they're bringing him back for training, and that when he learns enough, they'll let him go back. That's the plus, the positive view. That's a shiny view of that. The less shiny view is that what they want to do is pull him back and put him,
Stifle him, and
get him to teach him to be submissive, and do these things which are embarrassing to him in hopes that he will quit.
Yeah.
Um, of course, everything that you see about him tells you he's not going to quit.
Right. Yeah.
And he hasn't. In fact, he's done a lot of very positive things to show that he's learning and trying. The rest of the year, this is one of those things that you were hinting at that kind of dropped off the radar after this. It stayed on for about a month. There was a lot of report about what's going on, how are the two stables mixing, and a lot of his wrestlers who have wound up quitting. Ones who had been in his stable have over the course of the year. When the folding in happened, a group of 4 or 5 of them right away quit.
Yeah.
And then another 1 or 2 after the next tournament. And it's been that way another couple here or there. But there are a bunch that are still staying there. And the stable they're at is a great stable. And it's now the biggest stable because they've got these 2 powerhouse groups together. And, you're going to get to learn from the best. There's a lot of top division rikishi there. But that also means it's hard for the younger guys to get time.
Yeah.
And you've got to do things the old master's way. And if you joined in particular to be Hakuho's student, you're not his student anymore. You're the current master's student.
Yeah, and good on him for being able to withstand that, because that's quite a shaming and experience. It just seems very
I guess the most recent thing, and maybe this should have been something I put in the Sumo News, they announced that the Hakuho Cup is going to happen in 2025, and it will remain being called the Hakuho Cup, but that he's not in charge of it, or more to the point, his boss is really in charge of it and will be there and will be giving the final speech at the end of it and making the I'm in charge appearances.
Wild.
But it will be the Hakuho Cup, and it will go on as usual. And so that's good. I mean, it would be terrible if that tournament disappeared. It filled such a needed void. And it's just funny that it took Hakuho to make it. Sumo Association wasn't making that happen. Hakuho did.
Yeah. And I think it's a bummer that he's can't be in charge of it. That his That's.
But I think that he, looking at the long view, he sees it in the end. He'll continue to walk this penitent path, and eventually he'll get it back, and it'll come back to him. Yeah. I think that one of the truths behind this is he did kind of walk out with a lot of pride, and that doesn't fly. Right? You've got to, if you want to succeed in Japan, I can tell you as someone who's been there, you don't have to do everything the way the Japanese do, but you have to understand how things are done and fit into that. You can't make them fit around you.
Right. Yeah. No, but I mean, also, I think too, ultimately, what I can take away from this is how much love he has for sumo. I mean, how much he's committed to being, because I mean, only that would, I couldn't imagine any other reason to sit and suffer. Pride, not, I'm not that proud. I'll just be like, no, forget it, I'm out. Or stubborn, but yeah, okay.
So in March there was the Harubashu, the spring tournament, also called the Osaka Basho, because it takes place in Osaka.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting tournament, because that was the one that Takeru Fuji won, ranked at Magashira 17. It was his first tournament. He had one previous tournament in the top division a year or a year and a half previously. He'd done badly and dropped out, and this was the first time back since then. And he went 13-2.
That's
took
right.
the Yusho.
Yeah,
And
exciting.
It was very exciting, and he was just plowing over everyone. But on day 14, he wrenched his ankle so badly he had to be carried off
I
to
remember
the
that
hospital.
match. Yeah.
And wound up being out with injury for the next 4 months and dropping out of the top division entirely. In fact, I think he dropped out of Juryo. He dropped down into Makushita and had to fight his way back. Which he did last tournament. He was back in the top division. So he shows up for one tournament, wins it, disappears, and then at the very end of the year he's made his way back. Did not have a great tournament, his first one back. He didn't have a dominant tournament. But he did get his Kachikoshi, and he is looking like someone who is here for the long haul. He's back again.
Exciting.
Onosho, in his second tournament in the top division, we thought January was his premiere. In his second one, he finished second. He got the Junior Show, and which set a new record, the quickest. Well, if he had won the tournament, it certainly would have been a record for quickest Yusho win. But I think that was also a record for a Junior Yusho. And he just had a great year. I mean, just it starts with join the top division in January, and we see where he is by the end of the year. He's Yokozuna, or he's Ozeki on a path to potential Yokozuna promotion. Just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Also a contributor, I believe, to my my ascension.
Yeah. Well, he helps. It's good to have him on your team. Good guy to have on your team.
That's right. He performs. Yep.
Also of significance in that tournament was that Kirishima injured himself on day 10 after coming in January with a potential of getting a Yokozuna promotion and not getting it. He injured himself in the Harubasho and has just struggled up and down all year since. He's since lost he was ranked at Ozeki at the time, clearly. And he's no longer Ozeki. And certainly given how he performed last tournament, we haven't seen the January rankings yet, but I expect him not even to be in Sanyaku for January. And just about everyone does, given how badly he did. So that was he had been the leading contender to be our next Yokozuna at that point. And I think not all, but a great many of the pundits kind of looked at him and said, "Yep, next Yokozuna going to be Kirishima." No, not even sure he's ever going to get back to being Ozeki again.
Right.
So,
do you think he has designs on that level of? I mean, it's hard to say because they don't really brag a lot, right? I mean, they're not.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. You don't succeed that well in a sport like this without wanting it.
Right. Yeah.
We talk about that. There's some whether or not it's a realistic want is
another discussion. But yeah,
but you want it.
But if you want it and you've got the talent, then you can.
I mean, another one of the things we talked about was that up until him, he is a Mongolian-born wrestler. Up until him, every Mongolian-born wrestler who reached the rank of Ozeki got to be Yokozuna eventually. He now is in a position to be the first person not to do that. First Mongolian-born wrestler not to make Ozeki and not achieve Yokozuna eventually. Also on that list right now is Hoshoryu.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't, as long as Kirishima doesn't, Hoshoryu won't have the first one, the onus of being the first one. So yeah, no, I think that Kirishima very much wants to get right, get healthy, and get Yokozuna. And a lot of pundits still put him on the list of people who are likely to do it in the next 5 years.
God, 5 years is forever long in sumo. It's a long time. Yeah.
So let's see what's that. In April, Akebono, the first foreign-born rikishi, the Hawaiian Samoan wrestler, died at the age of 54 from heart condition.
Yeah,
which is very sad. I saw him. I don't want to say wrestle. It's English doesn't have a word for it. I saw him sumo. I saw him live, in live competition on a number of occasions. And I was at a Jungyo at one of the exhibition tours where I was sitting on a gymnasium floor about 10 rows back from the dohyo when he entered for his ring entering ceremony, and he walked right by me, and it was just incredible.
Pretty awesome.
I'd seen him fight, I'd seen him in person, I'd seen him from a distance, but sitting on the floor as he came wrapped in that white belt with his game face on, stomping down the hallway, just looking up to this guy who's almost 7 feet tall, almost 400 pounds.
That's a
thing I will never forget.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, very sad when he passed away. But he'd been in very poor health for a while. I know he had been wheelchair bound for a year or more.
Oh,
kind of glad that his pain was over, but very sad for the sumo world when he passed away. In July, the Natsubasho, in May at the Natsubasho, the summer tournament, Onosato wins his first tournament. So now January, he joins the top division for the first time. March, he finishes second, and in May, he wins.
Right, it's quite a trajectory. Yeah.
So he went 12-3. And closest the runners up were Kotozakura in his first tournament as Kotozakura, and Daisho, who went 11-4. So Onosato again, just coming in and making a name for himself. In July at the Nagoya Basho, Terunofuji came back again after missing. Like I say, he won in January and then came out. I think he only fought 2 or 3 matches in March and then was injured and missed the rest of that tournament and didn't compete at all in May. He came back again in July and won the whole thing.
Right, won the whole thing.
Won the whole thing again. Yeah. This time also in a playoff against Takanosho, who is kind of a surprise. They both went 12-3. Not quite as dominant. Terunofuji's feet of clay. I don't know if it's feet of clay or knees of noodles.
Or maybe both. But,
yeah. But looking a little more human. But won it in a playoff and got his 10th Yusho and became a Daiokozuna. He succeeded. He is now...
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Have any retired rikishi ever come back?
No, you don't. No, you don't come back.
Right. Yeah. I didn't think so, but I didn't know for sure what that would even look like, or
once you're out, you're out. That's why they will hang on despite being injured for so long, because and why it's Yokozuna, you hold on as long as you can, because once you're out, you're out. The door does not swing both ways.
Very interesting. I mean, and of course, unless you're looking at different ways of being involved in sumo, like
right. Oh yeah, no, I mean
all that, but I just wonder, yeah.
You don't get back to competitive in in the Japan Sumo Association once you've retired.
Gotcha. Big deal. Yeah.
So yeah, there was his 10th U show happened this year. Then in September, the Aki tournament, the Aki Basho, the fall tournament happened, and Ono Sato wins again. He wins his second U show ever. Right? We got 5 tournaments. one first tournament in the top division ever, 1 winner, 1 runner up, or 1 runner up, 2 winners. Kirishima came back. This was his best performance of the year after that injury, and finished second. But he also was looking a little shaky at the end of it. I think he ended that tournament with a couple of losses and tweaked his knee some more, and has had a very bad time of it in the 4 months since then.
Yeah.
But he and Wakataka Kage, a name that we hadn't talked about in a very long time. He was injured a year and a half ago, and finally made his way back to the top division in July, and in September at Maegashira 7 managed to get a second place record with a 12-3 record. Also in that tournament, Tamawashi, the 40-year-old, he just turned 40 years old, and breaks the all-time Ironman record. Most days of Basho competition without missing a day at over 1,600.
That's
that
impressive.
happened on day 4, and he's still going. Right? He hasn't missed a day since then either. So he is now all-time most consecutive appearances, Rishi.
Love it.
So good on you, old man at 40, still mixing it up.
Oh, ancient guy. Yeah.
Mixing it up with the young kids. Following that tournament, Takakeisho, who we haven't talked about at all, he had a terrible year. The last couple of years, he's had those pinch neck problems he's been dealing with, and he struggled and dropped out of Ozeki, and was about to. He had, when you drop out of Ozeki, you have 1 tournament to try and win it back as a Sekiwake, and he couldn't finish that tournament. He had to drop out again because of injury. So he just announced his retirement. So he's gone.
Yeah.
And then we had the Kyushu Basho just in November last month.
Mm-hmm.
Kotozakura finally gets his first tournament win.
Yay.
That's what I was saying. You get 14-1. 14-1, the best record we've seen in quite a long time. Even with both of his wins this year, Terunofuji did not go 14-1, let alone 15-0. And the November tournament, if I'm presuming you remember at this point, was very exciting because Hoshoryu was tied with Kotozakura on the final day. They were both 13-1 going into the final match of the tournament. So Kotozakura won that match and won the tournament, giving Hoshoryu the runner-up. But beyond that, that's 13 wins is the best he's ever done. And our question is he ready to start performing like that all the time? And what that says, looking at going into 2025. We'll be talking about that a little later, but that was a super exciting tournament in November.
Agreed.
And then our last bit of review, I had not been aware of this, but the Sumo Association announced that there are 90 days of tournaments of Basho tournaments in a year, and all 90 days were ticket sellouts.
Yeah, that's it. That's encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the first time that's happened since 1996.
What was the draw?
How many people is that? I don't know.
No. I'm sorry. Like, what drew them? What drew these record numbers? Is it just because
Sumo's popular?
Yeah.
And that's one of those measures of how sumo's doing is, and so each tournament, if you go, if you watch on NHK or you go to a tournament, you'll see that above the dohyo, above the little roof that hangs above the dohyo, there are sometimes these long white banners which are hanging facing all four directions. They get rolled down, and those banners mean that today's crowd was a sellout. And it's just this long-standing tradition to do that, to let everyone know that all tickets have been sold to this today's matches. And so you know when you're watching on television, when you're watching uh, in Japan, something they will cover each day. So, oh look, it's a sellout today, and the banners come down.
Nice.
And every once in a while, it'd be like, nope, no banners. Oh well, wonder what happened today. It's these days. I think probably for most uh, for most of the last 10, 15 years, every day in Tokyo sells out for just for sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine that Osaka also sells out. So the big questions are the other two tournaments are
Yeah.
what happens in Nagoya and in Kyushu. And Kyushu is, when I was watching, was well known as a place that people just didn't turn out. Like, you got a sellout day, got two sellout days in Kyushu. Even the weekends didn't sell out. But again, when I was watching, when Takanohana came along and Akebono was riding high, and suddenly even Kyushu, everything was selling out. And I understand that in the early 20 teens, when the big match fixing scandal was going on, they took a big hit in attendance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's say for the last 10 years or so, it's been pretty standard that all the Tokyo days sell out. Most days sell out.
Interesting. I'm trying to find any statistics that are put together even half as well as our friend. Yeah, no, everybody's got a take on it, but that is interesting to see. And I do think that I would love to correlate the uptick to a certain moment. There just, I think, there's probably a lot to learn there. I think.
I mean,
a moment in time. I don't mean like a one moment on the door,
right.
In the ring, but yeah, cool.
Yeah. So that's the year in review. That's what happened in 2024 in sumo.
What a long year this show has been.
Yeah.
It was a great year. It was it was good sumo. It was a lot of fun, and this is my this year is the year that I really saw sumo finally.
Yes, this is you. You came. You got your Mawashi, my friend.
I got my Mawashi. Yep. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a lot of great stuff, and stuff that we hadn't seen before, and
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay. So.
So next, I put a little, just kind of an open question for discussion of who was the best Rikishi of 2024. Going to pick whose year it was, and I put stats in our notes for three of them, not saying that it necessarily needs to be one of them, but these are the most likely candidates. Kotozakura is on there.
Oh, yeah.
He had the most wins of anyone on the tour. It was 66 wins this year. Of the 90 matches, he won 66 of them, and that's best. And he won his first tournament. He won a tournament, and he finished second twice. So of the 6 tournaments, he won one and finished twice second. And he got a special prize, which, particularly as a high-ranking wrestler, gets harder and harder to do. And you're kind of expected when you're an Ozeki or Sanyaku, even, you're expected to do well. So you got to really perform to get a special prize. So that's a good year.
Yeah, that's a good year. Absolutely. And these, I mean, as far as these Rikishi go, I gotta say, I do appreciate that. Of course, top of the top, they're gonna 66 wins is not nothing, and it's great.
Yeah.
But I really, and I will also say that the sort of convergence of my opening awareness to sumo and watching Hoshoryu, he's kind of, I'm a fan of Tobizaru. I love what he does in the ring. It's very fun. But Hoshoryu is somebody that I'm really paying attention to.
Hoshoryu, to say on the other hand, had 53 wins. So again, that goes to what we were talking about. He's averaging about 10 wins a tournament, and a little less with only 53. You see that at 66 wins, Kozazaka is averaging 11 wins a tournament. And we go back and look at the great, the Yokozunas when they're healthy. They're winning 12 and 13 tournament matches a tournament.
Right.
And when they're doing well, it's higher than that. So Kotozakura at 66 is kind of on the cusp of that. Oh, good. Hoshoryu at 53 needs to do something better.
Right.
But is it still terrific?
There's an art there.
Yeah. He finished second twice. He got 2 Jun shows this year, which is really good. And he finished the year so strongly.
He really did, and he is somebody who really wears the moment on his face, and he really can track his sort of own emotional journey through winning and not winning, and and very interesting.
Yeah. And then the third person who I will say right out is my choice is Ono Sato.
Yes, absolutely.
First year, as we say, we're just going to review. He started the year with his first tournament in the top division, and he finished second for most wins this year with 65. One win behind Kotozakura. I think Hoshoryu was third with 53.
Yeah.
But Ono Sato had 2 Yusho, 2 tournament championships, and 1 second place, 1 Jun Yusho. And he won 8 special prizes. 8 special prizes.
Yeah, I mean,
and
absolutely.
All of this in his first year in the top division.
It's going to be incredible to see what happens next with this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be, one hopes and expects and whatever, I don't want to say praise, but definitely.
And he's 22 years old, 23 years old.
Unbelievable at 22 years old. That's I mean, he's met his destiny.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the Sumo Association doesn't have a Richie of the Year award, but they do have they kind of make it known who they talk about or who gets PR stuff done about them. And I think that when Sumo Primetime, when the Sumo Primetime podcast and the video cast, when they say something, it's coming out of what the Sumo Association wants said. And that's a place that almost certainly will have a show where they say who they think the best of the year is.
Right.
And they may come up and hedge it by saying, well, we had so many great people. Here are the best, and it's multiples. But if they come forward and say, clearly the best of the year is, that'll be the Sumo Association speaking.
Right. That'll be and that'll be up to us to read between the lines and catch those moments. And
and I will be curious as to how they approach that.
Because they also don't want to make too big of a. They don't want to blow up the.
One of the things I didn't put on the list is we talked about the Hokuseiho scandal. There was a minor scandal for Ono Sato when he first got brought up with his stable had been doing some bullying, and he was found to have taken part in it.
Was it the aerosol thing or?
No, that was the Hoshoryu thing. That was the making someone drink.
That's right. The one that we kind of went.
Yeah. No, it was bad, and it was not trying to sweep it under the rug, but it goes to show the number of times these things happen, and nothing or less is said about it, unless the Sumo Association wants to make a point. And I think that the reason they made a point about him is to keep him to straighten him out now, because he's
Right.
clearly going to be a big deal for the next 10 years.
Taking more of an
He'll,
interest because he's
he'll
going to be a
stand it.
lasting power. Interesting. Huh.
So that might be a reason why they would not want to say that because he did have a scandal. Can't have
Yeah.
your guy of the year have a scandal. But the truth of the matter is it was, as scandals go, pretty minor. He still was only two. It was after his first tournament as a top division guy, or second tournament as a top division guy. So he, uh, you know, he'd gotten promoted super quick. He's very young, and he shouldn't have done the thing he did. No question about it. Not
Right. Right.
underplaying that, or I don't mean to underplay that.
Right. But there's some lessons to be learned, and he's
Yeah,
still young enough, and to make those mistakes is not necessarily unusual, especially that kind of a
right.
mistake.
On the other hand, Kotozakura is a son of a respected coach, grandson of a uh, Yokozuna, they've been wanting him to do well and become the face of sumo for a while, and he's taken his time getting there.
Yeah.
And so I think that if they pick someone, it's going to be Kotozakura.
Yeah.
Kotozakura
That
will
makes
be
sense.
his year. But
Yeah.
I look at these numbers and I say, you know what? I
Hard.
cannot deny that it was a year of Onosato.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see it. Absolutely.
Um, but and there were other people that had really great years. So when we look at things, who are some of the people looking back at this year that you want to think about? I really loved watching this guy this year, or uh, you know,
You've really got my the top three. The only other ones, and I just don't really want to necessarily unpack it because we've said it enough, we've done it enough. But just the ones that didn't quite that delivered exactly how you hoped they wouldn't. Um, you know, uh, but yeah, I think I think I want to when I think about who I want to see do a little more and will be watching to pay attention, like Tobizaru, I think he could probably do a little more. Um, yeah, I mean, really, those are my four guys that I'm thinking
yeah,
about. But yeah, I'm also very curious to see who comes up from the ranks, and it's a moment I really appreciate. When you see someone like who was it, Shishi,
yeah, yeah,
and yeah, I'd hoped for more there. I'm not sure what happens next for that guy. But he goes back down to Julio, right?
probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
We'll
Um,
see. We'll find out in a couple of weeks when they announce the new Banzuke.
I also
And
think that there'll be a moment too when we can see the impact of the inspirational performance of the people at the top and
right,
I'm curious to see how that changes the landscape when you've
yeah,
got leadership intact and people are
right,
winning they're doing these remarkable things and breaking all these records. That just means that more people they're raising the bar in a way that
right.
that'll
We
inspire
certainly
those that come
we
up.
spent a lot of time the first year and a half of your tenure in sumo,
Yeah,
talking about the gear shift era, right?
that's right. Yeah, and it
Like
really is apparent. Yeah.
to see what this new era of having Kotozakura and Onosato and Hoshoryu, and
Hmm.
plus who else is going to rise up to the bait. Like I'm very interested to see what Takeru Fuji is going to do.
Hmm.
I'm very interested to see what Wakataka Kage, now that he's back and healthy. He wound up
Right.
with a Jun Yu show this year. Uh,
I did expect a little more from him, I will say, for this particular, but again, I get it,
No, coming back from injury,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
right.
pretty impressive.
He has won a tournament. Now he won it during that gear shift era,
Right.
but he's won a tournament in the past. Can he uh, bulk up and get himself back into a position where he will challenge for and win another one? Could be, could be.
Could be,
Will
yeah.
Will Kirishima get himself straightened out and come back? Very curious to see how that's going to play out in 2025. Um, I started the year thinking, yeah, he's going to be in a Yokozuna before the year's out. I didn't think there was any. If you'd asked me, I would think, oh, there's no chance he's not going to even be Sanyaku, but he won't be. It's not going to enter January. He will have dropped out of Sanyaku for the new Bonsuke. I have no. I'm not even worried about that prediction.
Right. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm still thinking. Talking about people who came and had a shot and then had injury problems and backed off and we're not talking about them. We didn't mention Asanoyama's name once in this whole conversation.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Um, Hakuoho, who had 2 years ago, last year, we're talking about him in the same way that we're talking about Takeru Fuji this year. And thinking of him having the potential to be like Onosato. But he had that injury, that shoulder injury that dropped him back, and he's having a harder time coming back from that. I think it's very likely he'll be in the top division in January again. So we should see him. And can he come and join these ranks here at the top? That'll be
Yeah. That would be very interesting. It would be very interesting. I would like to see, one of the things, just generally speaking, is I'd like to see some rivalries.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and I think I pointed this out when we were watching some of the 10 years ago matches.
Yeah.
That you had people when they fought who had fought each other 40 times, 40 and 50 and 60.
Yeah. Right.
Right. We just haven't had enough people who've been around long enough to do that. But we're beginning to once again see numbers in the teens for some pairings. I think that we're going to see a Kotozakura Onosato rivalry. They're interesting in how similarly they're built. They're both young guys who are, I think, both going to wind up being Yokozuna. So I think that's going to be that's going to wind up being a rivalry we're looking for. I think that I'm hoping, maybe this is me thinking with my heart rather than really thinking with my head, but I'm hoping that Atami Fuji is going to clear out the cobwebs and become one of those guys and mix it up in that group.
Maybe sometimes what it takes is just a sort of, the reset button has been hit, and the it can be very easy when you're in a group of people who are not performing to not perform, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's also though, like he's doing great. It might just be that his level is Maegashira 2. Like that's where he belongs, and he'll pop up a little and drop down a little, and maybe he doesn't have what it takes to be a Ozeki. I really hope he does. I love watching that kid.
Right.
But he's one of the stories I'm looking forward to in 2025 is Atami Fuji.
Yeah, very much so. What's interesting too is that it is not often that I think sumo has afforded me the opportunity to do this, but I always, whenever I have a very sort of distant. My relationship with sports involves Bloody Marys on Sunday. Watching teams I don't care about. Hanging out with friends that I love. Like that's really the thing. But there is this sort of understanding that some sumo are meant for the middle.
Yeah.
And that's there. It's just as important a piece of the larger sumo organism. But that's Very interesting because you don't, I'm slowly changing my perspective of not everybody is. I mean, this sounds like I'm being nihilist or something, but not everybody's a winner. But that is to acknowledge that there's an architecture to all of this,
Right.
and each piece helps, helps do the thing. So yeah, very interesting. I'm definitely spending more time thinking about just sort of the philosophical meanings and the stuff that the one of the things that I'm hoping to wrap my mind around is there. It doesn't seem as bad as maybe I first thought it was, but that throwaway culture of like, get out of here, you're 28, you old man, for you to go to the sushi barn or whatever. It's just not. Yeah, I mean, I still have a concern
You
about
still,
that.
well, you've got to. Yeah, you're right. You don't have a relationship with the professional sports world if that's
No,
what's bugging you, right?
right,
That's just
right, and then I mean, honestly, that might be another reason why that sports has long sort of not been my thing. When you think about like boxing and head
right.
injuries in football and and all of that, like it does feel. Yeah, so I'm anyway, so I'm looking forward to, and I think sumo it has a culture and a history behind it that is makes it easier for me to kind of
Mm,
connect to it, I guess. I don't know
mm.
what. Yeah. Seems like we're doing something older and more important than,
Yeah,
any other sport. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
all right. Maybe that's just why it's a good podcast.
That's right. Okay, well,
All right. So, what do you? So, who are you hoping to? So, I'm going to say the things I'm looking in 2025. I'm looking to see if Hoshoryu is really taking a leap up.
same.
Right.
Yep.
You're talking about those rivalries. When we
Yes.
looked at some of those, the Hakuho rivalries,
Right.
there were. He was part of an era where there were three Yokozuna through the
Yeah.
latter half of his thing, and he dominated at least one of them. Uh, like had a record of 55-12 against him, right?
Right. Right.
So, and then the other one was about you know 38-22, right? It's still clearly his way, and his strongest rival was Onosato,
Yeah.
uh, not Kisenosato,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Onosato's coach,
Yep.
who they weren't 50-50, but you know they fought a lot of times, and the record was as close as anyone with Hakuho. Um, I'm just wondering if Hoshoryu is going to wind up being that sad sack is really the wrong word, but
I hope not.
he's the one in there that doesn't that always gets beat. He's always a bridesmaid, or
Yeah.
is he ready to start to step up and be one of
I'll
the
just say there was a marked sort of just in every aspect, every way that he was wrestling, the way he
yeah,
looked, everything was elevated. He was there. He was in it. He was on
right.
fire. Yeah, and
But,
one hopes
but
that he can sustain it. Yeah.
right, yeah, but we know that's we talk about with all Ricci how hard that is to do for 15 days. And we talk about for the Ozeki how hard that is to do every tournament. Right,
Yeah,
it's
that's
clear
right. That's right.
he has that in him, but does he have it in him 6 times a year?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's the
I
beauty
think
of
yeah,
this is something to watch. Yeah.
I think it'd be great if the answer is yes, but I'm not convinced enough that I say I think the answer is
It
yes.
does make you kind of want to sequester Shodai away somewhere
Don't
so that
don't,
that energy doesn't spread, whatever he's got.
don't catch the Shodai.
Don't catch the Shodai. Yeah, yeah. I wonder too what he's going to do just as a lark, like almost like a court jester sort of
Yeah,
vibe. But I am very fascinated about who's coming up.
yeah,
Who's
yeah.
going to come up and who's going to surprise us and for me especially because it's not like I can't just go look and get
Right.
a sense of who's out there, but it's interesting to see them pop up.
Should be exciting.
It should be interesting.
All right.
One
So
would expect.
I think that's what I've got on what I put on my list for our Bonenkai. It's
Well,
been a
yeah.
it's been a really great year of sumo, Troy, and I'm so glad that we got to do it together.
I am too, my friend, and I'm so glad to have been able to experience this sumo with such a fantastic sommelier. I mean, it's a funny, little nickname, fun to say, but it really means something. You really know your stuff, and you are. I'm flailing my hands around, and nobody's even in here with me. But no, Stan, you're really. It's a very much a joy to have learned all about sumo and to have done so with you as the tutor. I mean, it's just been, you're good at this, and you know your sumo.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, and we'll get that campaign to get you on the council,
right?
The council west, as it were. Funny, but yeah. So a good year to you, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and we will be back in 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
I think 2 weeks on. I think that the Banzuke, the Hatsubasho 2025 Hatsubasho Banzuke is set to be released on the 30th of December. So that means, if that's the case, it will be back on the 3rd of January.
Yeah. Well, I like that, starting nice and fresh in the new year.
Yeah. Folks, I hope you come on back. If you're not yet, please follow us on our Facebook group. We got a great little Facebook group.
We do, yeah. Look for the Sumo Show, but also, depending on where you're watching this, you can be on Twitch, you can be on Facebook. No, not Facebook. Oh, yes. I've still got the channels up here. Who knows? Who knows how you're seeing this? Wherever you are, make sure you're liking and subscribing it.
Right. But
if you're just at home,
come to YouTube.
Yeah, come to YouTube for sure. If you're just sitting at home and you're picking this up, and your molars somehow, your dental work is picking up our show. Come to YouTube and like on it.
Subscribe and like, please. All those things that every show asks you to do.
Tickle the bell. Do them. Touchy eye that bell.
Tickle that bell.
Tickle. All right, my friend. Well,
all right, you're gonna roll out those drums one more time. So taiko drums one more time for the year.
Here we go.
You have been listening to The Sumo Show, a live podcast about the art and sport of sumo. Your hosts tonight have been Stan Brown and Troy Hewitt. Wow, I got your name wrong. Production by Troy Hewitt. Sommeliering by Stan Brown, though not pronouncing his partner's name right. And initial charge by Touchy Eye Troy. So until next year, you're the snake. We say to you, ja mata ne.
Happy holidays, everybody. Bye.
Happy holidays.